All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of 8192 The Truth. I am Joel T. Supernoff for my partner, Kevin Brother Sincinier. This is a special episode of 8192 The Truth. I have with me on the phone Eddie Marin. And Eddie's brother, Max Marin, was one of the very first mixed martial artists to fight out of Calgary. And unfortunately, he passed away tragically about 10 days ago. I was introduced to Ed through one of his friends, and I thought that we'd have him on the show. He could tell us about his brother, and we would dedicate this show to all of our fallen brothers. How are you doing, Eddie?
Good afternoon, Joe. How are you doing today, man? I want to start off by saying it's an absolute pleasure to be talking with you this afternoon, and thank you once again for having me.
No problem, Eddie. So let's just get into it. Tell me about your brother.
My baby brother, man, his name was Maximiliano Marin, but we called him Max Marin. And his ring name was Little Sumo. This little dude weighed 140, 145 pounds, soaking wet. And he started an MMA career out of Calgary, Alberta, back in the day, and just was a little rocket. Fought 2 weight categories above his own because featherweights didn't exist in those days, right? And we were fighting out of Indian reservations in Kelowna and whatnot in different shows. So they had to fight guys at 155, and he was at 140. So you can imagine. That was a little spark plug. So
now,
that's what I'm dedicating this college for.
Okay, cool. So we're dedicating the actual show to your brother Max. Now, when he was fighting, I was talking to a friend of mine, Ryan Walker, about the early days of Team Quest. And the early days of Team Quest, there was a guy named Greg Piper. And back then, this is the year, this is 1999, 2000, 2001. The very first weight class was usually 165 pounds. So
right, because the guys were bigger guys in those days, and that's what they were coming up for the shows. It was a rarity to get a little guy in, and especially a guy who could bring in a draw.
Yeah, so I understand how hard it must have been for your brother to get fights. So he had to pretty much just take on all comers. Now they made a documentary about him.
Absolutely, Joe. And you know what? That's called the Cauliflower Ear in the Way of the Warrior. You can probably find that on YouTube there, brother. Not only that, there's a Max Marin highlight reel you can check on YouTube, and it'll give you a chance to put the face to the name and, understand a little bit more about my younger brother. And it's weird I call him my baby brother and stuff, because you got to realize, Joe, I know you have brothers too, and there's a lot of listeners that have brothers that grew up together, watched school together, shared their first dances and parties and all that fun stuff that you do in your youth. So not only did I get a chance and opportunity to see him grow and become a big superstar in what he did, but I had the opportunity to walk with him in peaceful times when we were kids. So that's something I carry very close to me. So
yeah, man, I totally understand. I lost my brother Leo several years back, and anybody that is listening to the podcast and has lost a brother, they understand that there's you lose a little part of yourself. For me, it was my oldest brother, and there was a lot of questions. I didn't have a chance to ask him, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until it was too late. We think that we have an extended period of time when in truth, Eddie, we don't. We only have as much time as we have, and normally nobody knows what that is. So your brother was taken from. I was talking to you earlier. Something that like. Go on.
Listen, brother. Unfortunately, the condition itself is called TTP. It is as rare as, I think, maybe 4 cases in 200 million, something like that. It's better chance of getting hit by lightning. It's not in our genes. We've already been tested for all that stuff, so there's a 1% chance, and so you can write that off the books. But unfortunately, this disease took a guy that's in the best shape of his life, mixed martial arts coach, 20 years consecutive on the mat, and from having a mild headache and dizziness, he was dead within 10 days.
Man. Yeah.
Man, and I kept telling him, bro, relax. The flu takes 7 days to get over. Relax, dude. Look where we are. We're in Canada. We're in the best hospitals. Calm down. Like, let's get this in perspective. And he wouldn't. Kept telling me, no, man, something's wrong. This is really something different. This is something I'm having a hard time with. So it was one of those things that was really hard at the end because, you know, you see someone who's so brave and all the time ready to roll and ready on the drop of a hat with serious concerns in his eyes. What else are you going to do as a brother but try to calm him down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I know that man, you know, tragedy strikes, and once it strikes, you really don't know how to deal with it. You know, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your brother a little bit. Let me ask you, because in times of this, the best thing to do is cry a little bit and laugh a little bit. What was one of his most memorable matches that you had a chance to either go to or watch?
I'll tell you what, man. Uh, there's a few. He fought in Chicago for Ultimate Magazine once, and I forget this guy's name now, man, because I'm a little emotional, right? Pedro Sauer's black belt, I think he's a guy that fights out of Chicago. Jeff Curran.
Okay.
My brother and Jeff Curran did 3 or 4 rounds, and you think it was two dogs going at each other like mad. It was one of the best matches. I bet if you look for it, it's got to be somewhere. I even called Jeff himself. He'll remember because he was quoted saying Max Marin was his hardest fight he's ever had in his life.
Well, boy, that's saying something.
Yeah, man, he went all the way out, and Frank Shamrock was on that show. There was a bunch of big players on that show. So it was one of the most memorable times that I had a chance to travel with him. You know, go deep into the States, deep as we've been in, you know, in that part of the United States. And see this guy put on a performance that just deserves every award that could have been awarded. Unfortunately, he got caught in the triangle, but that's the game we play. You know, you can't always win every one, but the effort itself was the win.
Okay, so that was one of his most memorable fights that you can think of. And what?
Absolutely, man. But you know what? Every time he fought, brother, it wasn't you know what I mean. It was a show. He came to bang, and that was the most admirable things about him, that he prepared himself not only mentally and physically, but he went in there with full intent. And that's the difference between a professional and an amateur. He took his job seriously, and he poured his heart into his passion. He made a living out of it, and it's something you got to admire in a man to live his life the way he wants to live it, right?
Yeah. So what are some other things about your brother that we need to know?
You know what, man? He had a hell of a way on the mic. One of his quotes is, "My name is Max Marin, and my style is kicking the shit out of people." That's how he started out. So right off the bat, you're like, what? So in the sense of being able to put on a show and be able to entertain, he was right up there. He knew the whole business. He knew how to put people in seats. He prepared himself 100%. He was a real professional, and that's what made him different from others. He wasn't just a meathead, right?
Yeah, that's what people don't understand. Well, it's changed quite a bit. I wouldn't say that most of them aren't meatheads now, but in the old days, you know, most of the fighters weren't meatheads. I can't generally say that now, but most of the professionals.
I remember walking around with jiu-jitsu shirts on, right? And you run into a guy at a gas station, be like, "Well, you know, I can do that." I'm like, "Sir, I've trained jiu-jitsu since I was like 10 years old. What are you talking about? You know, you need this, you need that, you need stamina. It's not just about being a tough guy. If you think being tough is a gift, it's not. You judge toughness by how much abuse you don't take, not how much abuse you can take. That's the difference in a good fighter."
That's it. That's a cool quote. Your toughness is how much punishment you don't take. All right, Eddie. Let's one last part on your brother, and then I'm going to finish up the show. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your brother and get it out and let us know how we can learn more about this warrior from Canada. Go ahead and.
Little guy out, bros. This is part of our story. We immigrated to Canada in 1976. After that, we grew up in Calgary, Alberta, with our friends and family. We got into the martial arts at a very, very young age. I was about 8, my brother was 6. And we kept going through jiu-jitsu, karate, and wrestling, and made it a passion. Together, we spent that time. Some of the best moves, submission moves we made up were the ones that we moved my mom's coffee table. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take that with me. My memories. It's been 2 weeks since my brother passed, so I wanted to dedicate the show to him and tell him that I love him.
All right, brother. All the best. All the best to you and Max's family.
One last thing, brother, man. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be on your show. There is a GoFundMe page for the family. It is Marin Family Fund on the GoFundMe website. You might have to scroll down, but everything goes to his wife and his 4 children that he's left behind that are now my children. So we're just going to keep trucking forward and moving on in life, brother.
All right, brother. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world.
God bless you, bro. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
So I had a gentleman that follows me on Twitter and follows Your Welcome, and then is a fan of this podcast. Kind of reach out to me and say, hey, do me a favor. There's a guy out there that has a great story. His name's Max Marin. He passed away out of the blue, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna reach out to his brother. And I'm gonna let him tell us a little bit about his brother. For the reality is, when most of us lose somebody, man, we feel lost. We feel. I think loss is a real word, and when you lose somebody, you feel lost. So I hope that helps him and his family. And I hope we as a community can throw a couple shekels in for his kids and make something good happen for somebody we've never met before. Today is we are having a surprise birthday party for Chael Sonnen, me, Miss H, and Lad, and there is a place in Portland. It's actually in Selwood, and it's a really tough place to get to, unless you live in that area. Selwood, it's a 35 minute, depends on what time you go. It could be a 40-minute drive. Well, they have these cupcakes, and they're called Chantilly cupcakes, and you wouldn't believe how good these cupcakes are. Miss H is a dynamite cook, but she's also, her specialty is baking, and she can't touch these cupcakes. Like Miss H, to nod her head on these cupcakes, that's a big thing. So I've been going down there twice a year. I go down there for Jennifer's birthday, and I go down there for Chael's birthday. And so me and Lad were doing the math. I was like, man, I've driven to Sacramento for cupcakes for Chael. And then when I added Miss H to it, now I've driven to Los Angeles, all for these cupcakes. Amazing cupcakes. Surprise birthday party for Chael. We got KU coming on. KU plays in 32 minutes. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, do you listen to me? Do you guys listen to me when I tell you who the best up-and-coming fighters are in the world? I told you about Jake Smith, and Jake Smith was a 2.5 to 1 underdog. He went out and smooshed in 53 seconds. I tell you about Ricky Simone. Well, Ricky had his Legacy Fighting Championship. He was the champion, 135-pound champion, and he was on this Friday. It was pretty cool. Ricky hit a left to the body and then a left to the temple. He went body head with his left. His opponent was going out. He then hit him with a flying knee, a left, a right, a left, and a right. Everything he threw landed. And so that was cool enough. But when they stopped the fight, Ricky then hulked out. He did a Hulk out. I'd never seen this before. And he said he was embarrassed by the Hulk out. I mean, for me, the Hulk out was the coolest part of it. So Ricky was I think he was a 2-to-1 favorite, and he should have been. He also, with that, he has now got a UFC contract, and he's going to be fighting, I think, in like 30 days. If I was managing Ricky Simone, I think he's a top 5 fighter in that weight class right now. I would just get to it. I would just get to it because that style he has, man, there's so much pressure to that. And once he becomes a main eventer, once he's doing the main event fights and he's doing 5 rounds, that pace that he has is so hard to deal with. Normally, you get a guy that goes from amateurs, and then I think Ricky's had 12 or 13 professional fights. Normally, once he gets in the UFC, you would say, "Hey, let's take it slow." In this particular case, I'm thinking about the top guys at 135 pounds, and there isn't anybody. There is not anybody. I'd say I like that fight. I mean, do I think he could beat TJ right now? I don't know who can beat TJ, but if somebody can, I think it'd be Ricky. Do I think he could beat Cody? Man, I don't know. But I wouldn't say no. You need time. I think he's ready. I think he's ready for the top guys in the UFC right now. I do not think he needs to wait. He has a fight coming up with, I believe, a Russian I've never heard of, but I'm sure he's tough. Man, then after that, I would just, if I was Ricky, and I'm nobody. I'm just a guy that has been watching this sport since it was the best fighters in the world were in the back of my car dealership. So if I was giving him advice, that advice would be keep doing exactly what you're doing. You're the toughest fighter in the world at 135 pounds. And the only difference is from now to then is you don't have the belt right now. But there's no reason in the world to believe he's going to magically get a bunch better over the next 3 or 4 fights or 5 or 6 fights before we choose that he gets to fight the top guys in the world. I think he's a top 5 for sure, top 10 guy in the world right now. Go watch that fight. It's Google Ricky Simone LFA. He landed that the body to head is a tough thing to do. Then he went flying knee, left, right. The guy should have been called Magnet because everything Ricky threw landed. This is going to be a short show today. The last thing I want to talk about is Eric Reed, San Francisco 49ers, and Colin Kaepernick. Both of these guys are being blackballed because they kneeled, they protested during the national anthem. Both of them, 100%. They're talent-wise, they should be in the NFL. 100%. And I don't disagree with a company, and that's what the NFL is, the company, which is professional football, has said we don't want that. Our fans don't want that, and we don't want that. And I agree with it. Do I agree that those guys have a right to protest? 100%. Do I agree with what they're protesting about? Yes. I mean, they're protesting about racial equalities, and they're protesting about bad cops. And that is a legitimate thing to protest. It is not legitimate to protest it during the national anthem of somebody else's business. And that is the people that are writing you a check. The San Francisco 49ers and the National Football League are the business that employ you as the labor force. And what you choose to do in your off time is completely up to you. But when you have that uniform on, it isn't up to you anymore. It is up to them. And to ask you to stand up during the national anthem is not a big ask. It's a very, very simple ask. So do I think that Eric Reed deserves a second chance? Sure. He's come out and said, I won't do it anymore. I've learned my lesson. So yes, I think he deserves another chance. I think Colin Kaepernick deserves another chance. But I also understand why the National Football League has just said, no, we don't want that. I don't want that headache. I don't want the circus that goes with it. Now, with the Eric Reed thing, is now it's become something. Before he was just he was a very, very good player that chose to protest during the national anthem. He didn't think it would cost him his livelihood, and now it has. Well, for all of us that think that our replacement isn't somewhere, guess what? He is. Deuces.